Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So happy new year. Hopefully you're having an awesome 2018. If there's anything I can do to make it more awesome, let me know. Tweet me at ADSXE. Do you have any New Year's resolutions? Is that a thing for you? Well, first and foremost, before we get into it too much more, I want to say that 2018 is your year, my friend. 2018 is your year. And there's a reason for that. But let's talk about New Year's resolutions for a second. I don't believe in New Year's resolutions. I don't. It's never really been a thing for me. I think I did a couple cursory ones when I was a kid. My parents said, "What's your New Year's resolution?" I was like, try and get up more on time. And did I get up on time more? No, I didn't. Still can't. It's been a lifelong habit that I refuse to break. I'm just wired to be a night person. I will never be one of those people that hits the ground running, happy and glad to be alive at 6:30 in the morning. It will just never be me. I tried that resolution, didn't happen. So I don't believe in New Year's resolutions. If you're like me, you believe in seizing the day. I believe in knuckling down and putting a plan into action when you have an idea and when you're motivated. I don't know about you, but after a week and a half during the gluttonous Yuletide season, eating my weight in bacon-wrapped bacon and sugar-coated yum-yums, I seldom find myself with a level of motivation that is at its apex. When I'm sitting in a tryptophan-induced coma, my get up and go is sort of gone, and it's gone for the next couple of weeks. So making big life plans while I'm in that state never seemed like a brilliant idea to me. So if I have an idea about doing something in May, I'm going to do it in May. I'm not going to kick it around and pontificate and put it off until the clock strikes midnight roughly 9 months later. I'm not a big believer in New Year's resolutions, but as you and I are kicking off a new year, it seems to be a good time to reaffirm what this show is all about, what you and I are talking about, what our conversations are about. Speaking of conversations, I have long been of the opinion, and we've talked about this on the show, that too much agreement kills a conversation. There's a lot of listening options on your radio dial that are mostly made up of people preaching to the choir. Some guy screaming his lungs out to a bunch of people that already agree with him. To me, that doesn't represent a whole lot of challenge. That doesn't represent a whole lot of creativity. That doesn't represent a whole lot of anything interesting. If that's for you and if that's for the person doing, that's great. But if I'm in a room full of people that I agree with, whose stories I've already heard, it's not the most interesting time, which is why I invite disagreement. I invite dissent. You and I are going to disagree on a lot of stuff, possibly radically. But I have this idea, call it a crazy, cockeyed, wackadoo optimist notion that by sharing ideas with each other, ones that we're unfamiliar with, ones that we might not agree with, and coming to recognize each other's perspectives, that we might all grow together. I know, it sounds nuts. Absolutely nuts, I tell you. But I love disagreement. I think some of my best sort of like friendships and pen pal type relationships have come from disagreements, from people calling me on stuff that they think I'm wrong about. And if you do that in sort of an approachable way, if you do that in a respectful way, then, well, I think it opens the door to something awesome, something fascinating, something interesting, something that involves growth. I love it when people disagree with me in a constructive way, because I feel like I'm about to learn something, and that's cool. So if you want to disagree with me, go right ahead. AD@iHeartRadio.com is where you can do that, or you can tweet me at ADSXE. But right before the end of the year, I had a rather nice email exchange with this dude called Victor, who listens out of Port Orange. And this is a perfect example of what I'd like to reaffirm this show is all about. It's about listening to each other. It's about learning from one another, and it's about moving forward together, regardless of an increasingly meaningless label like Republican or Democrat. The politicians and the like are all too eager to use to elicit knee-jerk, unthinking, uninformed, moronic, knuckle-dragging loyalty. Anyways, I got this email from a guy called Victor. Do you remember when Trump got his tax changes passed We were talking about this. Me and Travis Golightly went, there's all these things, and let's run down, and we don't know exactly what everything means. But here are some bullet points, some takeaways. And one of the things we talked about was corporate tax. Corporate tax in America was at around 35%, and it's been lowered to sort of be in line with the rest of the world at around 20%. And I said, hey, I like that. I like us being equal to the rest of the world. And also it means that companies won't be motivated to, buy up Canadian donut chains the way... Travis, what was the name of the Canadian donut chain that Burger King bought? You knew this.
It was
right?
Tim Hortons.
Tim Hortons, right. So with this sort of situation, with the tax structure in America, companies like Burger King were motivated to buy up the Tim Hortons of this world in Canada so that they could go take advantage of Canada's much, much lower tax rate, right around 20%. And I think the American tax rate for corporations is being dropped to around 21%. And I was like, hey, A, we're equal to the rest of the world. B, this is going to encourage companies to stay here, keep business in America. That's a good thing. And there's a couple of other reasons why I think that lowering the corporate tax rate in America is a good thing as well. And, well, I got a really, really nice email from this dude, Victor, who pointedly disagreed with me. And, well, it was a real opportunity for growth when I found out why.
Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So if you are just joining us, first and foremost, Happy New Year. I hope your 2018 is off to an awesome start. The other thing that you should know is, well, while I don't believe in New Year's resolutions, while I don't believe that I make the best decisions or I'm at my most motivated during the joyous, freaking gluttonous Yuletide season after having sat myself on the couch for the last 2 weeks, imbibing crazy amounts of sugary and bacon-wrapped treats, those are not the times to summon your get up and go to do big life things. I am a believer in reaffirming what this show is about as we ring in a new year. It's about uniting people through fundamental truths, fundamental universal truths like boobs are great and fart jokes are funny and too much agreement kills a conversation. I'm a big believer in inviting dissent and disagreement. And I think that whenever I get a thoughtful email or a tweet or whatever it is from someone who disagrees with me about something we've been talking about on the show, I think it's a tremendous opportunity for growth. I think it's an ability, it's a teachable moment for me. It's a chance that I have to learn something that I'm not familiar with, even if that thing is only someone's perspective and someone's point of view. And so I love disagreement. And there was a perfect example of that happened to me as we were going into the new year. One of the last shows of the year, Travis Golightly and I spent some time talking about the changes that Trump's tax bill would bring. One of which was a lower corporate tax. And here's the thing. I'm all in favor of a lower corporate tax. As Travis pointed out, Burger King bought a company in Canada called Tom Hardy to take advantage of Canada's lower tax rates. They bought this company so they could headquarter themselves in Canada and take advantage of a tax rate that's right around 20% as opposed to America's 35%. That keeps jobs in America. That keeps productivity in America. And it gives American companies the same chance that companies all over the rest of the world have. And for that, I'm stoked. And look, the tax code or the revised tax code or what the tax code is going to wind up being is noticeably simpler and shorter than what we had previously, but it's still over 500 pages. And there's a lot in there that we haven't read. There's a lot in there we haven't understood yet. If you did some holiday reading and your holiday reading was a 500-page tax code, well, good for you, but I don't know too many people that did that. So there's stuff in there we don't know. There's stuff in there we don't fully understand. And there's stuff in there we won't understand until we see it put into action. But I got a great dissenting email from this dude called Victor, who lives in Port Orange and listens on WTKS in Orlando, I think, who said, "Hey, dude, I like your show. The interviews you do are great, and I generally agree with you on most things, except this tax bill. And from the get-go, I was like, oh man, sweet. I have an opportunity to learn something here. He said, I respect your points of the current corporate tax rate being a disincentive for big corporations to stay here, as well as certain individuals like athletes living in lower tax states because it's mathematically logical. I disagree with you on a couple of points, though. The big corporations outsourcing jobs got so rich specifically because of American infrastructure. They exploit our labor laws, our tax code, our antitrust laws, and even our physical infrastructure to get ahead and get even bigger, and then acquire more companies and consolidate the market to where there is artificial competition and all the wealth gets consolidated at the top, and that's the problem, at least in my opinion. And this is the part that really resonated with me. This is where I was just like, Victor, you make an excellent point. Consumers drive the market, not business wealth. If people don't have money to spend, this is beautifully simple. If people don't have money to spend, there is no market. These tax cuts may be fairly negligible to you and I, but these are big gains, permanent gains for the corporations. The tax cuts for the middle class will expire without a real wage increase, without access to affordable health care, and without a consumer base that is capable of sustaining this inflated market. It's a recipe for another economic crash. Which is a very sage point. And, well, this is the sort of thing I love going into my holiday. Especially when I have a little bit more time to think about this sort of thing. So I wrote Victor back. And this is where we start talking about you a bit. This is where we start talking about the fact that 2018, my friend, is your year. You got this. This is yours. And here's why. I wrote to Victor and I said, what a thoughtful email. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for taking the time to write me and telling me why you disagree. Hearing the perspectives of others is what lets us grow, and I believe it's the only way forward. Here's the thing, Victor. I actually agree with you on most of this. I still believe in lower corporate taxes and deregulation, but I agree. Despite being a simpler document, the tax overhaul is still hundreds of pages long, and it has tons in it that will be both negative and positive to a citizen, depending on who they are and what they do. It will take time to fully understand what the ramifications are. One of the reasons I'm into the lower tax rate for corporations and some deregulations for business is not so much because of these massive, dominant, consolidated corporations that seem to run huge chunks of the world and do. If you've listened to the show for a while, then there's a pretty good chance that you've heard me light up crony capitalism pretty good. It's because it makes it easier for small businesses. Anything that makes it easier for small businesses in America is the way forward, I think. Startups and entrepreneurs and ma and pa's. Anything that makes it easier for these folks to get a foothold is a good thing. Look, I've had a couple of small businesses, and I've seen firsthand how difficult it is to compete in a marketplace dominated by huge companies. I think this is an important step for us. This is an important step for you. Newer, younger, leaner, disruptive companies and businesses are what I believe are the key to evening the playing field between the little guy and the big guy. And adjusting the corporate tax rate is a small first step in giving these small upstart companies an environment in which new ideas and an environment in which hard work can win. See, giving people with a will to work an opportunity to say to their bosses, take this job and shove it, because their side hustle is now paying the bills, is something that is going to put power back into the hands of the American worker. It's something that will give the American worker an opportunity to take their own life in their own hands and compete. Now, look, I'm sure there's plenty of people that would argue against me on this particular point. But this is important, and this is why it is, in fact, your year.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah, give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on, come on.
So first and foremost, Happy New Year. Second of all, while I don't believe in New Year's resolutions, I do believe that the first of the year is a great time to think about who you are and where you're headed in life, and maybe a chance to redefine this show. And if you're just joining us, well, you might have missed the fact that I got a really thoughtful dissenting email from a guy called Victor, a guy who I hope continues to write me over the years, because I feel like I got a lot out of the conversation that we had. Travis Golightly and I were talking right before the end of the year about Trump's tax code and how the idea of lowering the corporate tax rate could be good for a lot of people. And Victor said, well, lowering the corporate tax rate might provide momentary relief for people, but ultimately it's going to create a false economy where all the wealth stays with these massive corporations, and we, the consumers, aren't going to move forward financially. And, well, the economy is going to collapse because the market is driven by consumers, not by corporations. We got to have money to buy stuff. Otherwise, what's the point of anything? Nothing, I tell you, nothing at all. And Victor made an excellent point. I would argue that all of what Victor said is completely true. I would also argue that something like this gives us a chance, you and me a chance. It gives newer, younger, leaner, disruptive companies and businesses a chance to even the playing field. Adjusting the corporate tax rate is a small first step in giving these companies an environment, these young ma and pa, leaner, meaner, more forward-thinking, but much less moneyed companies, an opportunity to grow based on their new ideas and their work ethic. A chance for someone like you to win doing something new. And this is the important thing. If you're like me, you don't like the idea of a boss. I've got about 7 or 8 bosses, and I love all of them as people. But do I want to have a boss? Hell no, I don't want to have a boss. It's just not how I'm wired. And one day I look forward to the time where I don't have a boss. One day I look forward to being able to go, hey, I've appreciated the last several years, but with the greatest of respect, take this job and shove it. Because, well, this thing I've been working on for a while, that's now paying my rent. And giving people with a will to work an opportunity to say to their bosses that immortal, wonderful, amazing, and distinctly American phrase, take this job and shove it, because their side hustle is now paying their bills, is something that is going to put power back in the hands of the American worker. Now, this is speculation on my part, and I could be totally wrong. Only time will tell. But I think in 2018, you have a shot. 2018 is your year. When I decided that I wanted to be on the radio, I got some advice from some people who I loved and who I trusted. They were very, very connected and very, very in the know when it came to radio. I needed a job, and I decided radio was going to be it. Someone asked me in kind of a sarcastic way before I made this decision, what's your gift to give to the world? And I went, well, I guess it's my voice. Been a singer in a screaming punk rock band for the previous part of my professional life, from the time I was 16 to the time when I decided I wanted to be on the radio. And I decided my gift, seeing as you ask, is my voice. And they kind of laughed at me. And with good reason, too, because who the hell says that? But I decided that after my music was done, I would try and get on the radio. And I got this advice from some people who, like I said, I loved and trusted. And they were really in the know. And they gave me very informed advice. They told me that no one would allow me to be on the air. They said you might get a job handing out koozies outside of a Verizon. You might get a job helping to cut commercials. You know how a studio works. There's stuff you can do. But the one thing that no one is going to allow you to do, especially in a market the size of Houston, where I was trying to start my radio career, was no one would allow me on the air. They were sure of that. But with nothing to lose and literally nothing, like nothing at all to my name, I decided to give it a go anyway. I decided to try. I ignored some very logical, very well-informed, and very caring advice. I stalked radio program directors, online and in person, with this demo I had in my hand. And I was told by the program director that first hired me that either I was going to get a restraining order or a job, maybe both. I started on the air doing overnights and weekends and fill-ins, whatever I was offered. I literally did not take a day off for 6 straight years. Christmas, New Year's Day, birthdays, weekends, didn't take a day off for 6 years. And I loved it, and I still do. But like a lot of people, I struggled through parts of the last year. 2017 was a doozy for many of us, and I've struggled every year. Every year, there's struggle. It's just part of being alive. It's part of that thing of being above ground and breathing. There's struggle. Since I started on the air, I don't know, about 13 years ago, I've remained employed, but I've experienced missteps and failures and mistakes and downsizings and rejections, and many people have stood in my way, and on many occasions, the person that was in my way was me. Being an idiot. I've heard no way more than I've heard yes. Still, I finished the year 2017 with 20 plus stations carrying me around the country. Someone once told me that no one would ever allow me on the air, that it was too late for me to have a career like that in radio. And it hasn't been an easy overnight quick thing, but I did finish this last year on over 20 radio stations. There's probably going to be more in 2018. But for some reason, though, on New Year's Eve, I was sitting around thinking about this, and I thought of that advice that I got years ago from people who very sensibly told me that I would never be able to do what I wanted to do. And I'm glad I remembered that. It was a great reminder as we look toward 2018 and what it holds. It was a great reminder that anything is possible. And I wanted to share that with you because 2018 is your year. 2018 is all about you. There's never, ever been a better time to do something that you've told that you cannot be done. There's never been a better time to do something you've told can't be done. So dream big. Work hard, question authority, give everything. Fail a lot, fall on your freaking face. And learn and get stronger and get smarter and be better and believe in you because I do. Believe in you because I do. Happy New Year. And you know what's actually kind of fascinating? You know what's kind of fascinating and amazing to me is that my very first day on the radio, my very first day where I got hired, like I'd been told I wasn't going to get hired, and I got hired, and I was like, okay, how do I do this? No idea. What do these candy colored buttons do? I've got literally no concept of how to go on the radio, push a button that opens up a mic and create something that is not going to get me fired after my first day. And there was one guy who said, hey, I'll show you how to do it. Just come on up. I'll be there. I'm not supposed to be helping you, but I will lie and say I'm doing production in the other room. And really, I'll help you build a show and teach you. And that person was Travis Golightly. The very first day I was ever on the air, you, my friend, were there. And that's another thing I will absolutely never forget.
Oh, I'll never forget it either. And it's funny because, like, I always think about it, and, like, I don't remember all the details of it until you start talking about it. And then it just makes me laugh because I'm like, oh, my God, man, that first night together. I mean, the whole concept that I had no clue what I was doing in the first place. And here I am trying to help you. Oh, it's scary, isn't it?
No, it was amazing, but I like it. You just, it was one of those moments where somebody who I barely knew because I just gotten hired, I didn't really know anybody at the station, someone who I barely knew was willing to go, I'll give you a hand. I'll show you how this goes. And I kid you not, you said, I'll order a pizza. And I was like, I can't let this guy, order me a pizza. And I was literally rummaging through couch cushions to have enough money to pay for my segment of the pizza. I knew I couldn't pick up the bill, but I was so unbelievably financially destitute. And I had so much riding on this desire to do something with myself that everyone was like, it's never going to happen, dude. Like that I was rummaging through couch cushions for change so I might be able to kick in a little bit to the pizza that you said you would buy. It was amazing.
It was such a good night. Like, I seriously, it's one of it. The fact that you ended up on the air, the fact that I ended up on the air is just as unlikely. I mean, it seriously, I didn't deserve it for sure. And so the fact that either of us ended up with, getting to be on the radio was just amazing. So the concept that here's another guy with no radio experience on the air, God, it's one of those stories that just seems so pretend. It's uncanny, but oh my God, what good times! Such good times.
It really was. It really was. I remember cursing someone out that called me and said something sarky to me. Like somebody called me and said something sarcastic, and I went in on them because like up till that point, I'd been like the lead singer in a screaming punk rock band, and you get heckled from the stage and you destroy them and you destroy their family and their children and their children's children, and you send them into a padded rubber room. That's what you do. You deal with dissension swiftly, not unlike a dictator in Cold War Russia. That's what fighting for your life in a punk rock band is all about. You know, like if you don't control that situation, it can go south quickly. So any kind of dissent, I had been trained for the previous sort of like 5-6 years of my life that you crush them brutally and without mercy. And I did that once on the phone, and you're like, yeah, so you never know who has a ratings diary or a personal people meter, or you don't really, and they're kind of like listening to you, so they're your friend and they're what's going to help sort of like you make a career of this. So screaming at them when they, you know, say something like that song sucks is not necessarily the best way to go. I was like, oh, note to self. Well, now I've learned that lesson. I've mastered radio. Good to know.
Somewhere, someone's sitting in their living room thinking to themselves, you know, I remember that first time that idiot was on the air and he screamed at me on the phone. Somewhere, someone remembers that night just as well as you and I do, which is hilarious. Yes.
It was a lesson learned. Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
I'm like you. I just, I hate to be that Debbie Downer that's like, New Year's resolutions, those are stupid. But no, I mean, I constantly, look at my life and, and just like you said, come April, if something's just not working out or if I find something that I don't like, then I change it. So no, I don't do the New Year's resolution thing. All the more power to the people who need it to change what they don't like or to motivate themselves, but it doesn't work for me. That's just not, I'm not like that. I won't stick with it. I just change things as they come.
All the things that people are looking forward to doing in 2018 with regard to resolutions. I found this list of the things that people are concentrating on. By the way, we're not alone. Like 30% of people don't make any New Year's resolutions.
Oh,
so
thank God.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. But the most common resolutions people are making this year are eat better. That's an ongoing process for you.
Every year, I know. Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, but yeah, I mean, it's a good resolution, but I feel like that's every year. That's like the number one resolution.
Yeah, eat better, exercise more. These are not mind-blowingly new concepts. And you know what's interesting? Like the fact that every single year, the number one and number two New Year's resolutions are eat better and exercise more really shows that we have not mastered this part of our psyche. The one that makes us go, oh, F this, just give me the entire box of donuts. Like we haven't beaten that yet for years and years. We are inferior to a box of Dunkin' Donuts. And that's an interesting, maybe,
I just wonder if there's all those someone sitting there and they're like, hey, do you have a New Year's resolution? And the other person's like, I think I'm going to work on eating better and exercising more. And they're, oh, those are good. Do you mind if I steal those? I'd like to use those as well. Like, is anybody surprised at this point by those two?
Are you in any way, shape, or form a conspiracy theorist?
Yeah. Not like to a crazy extent, but yeah, I am.
Have you heard this idea of the bliss point?
No.
So the bliss point is, the bliss point is, well, it refers in food manufacturing to amounts of salt and sugar that are addictive and have a reaction to our body chemistry where we feel absolute bliss from eating, I don't know, a Dorito or something like that, or that donut that we were talking about. And the fact that eat better and exercise more are consistently what people want to focus on when it comes to New Year's resolutions gives some credence to this idea that there's people in labs studying this thing called the bliss point, where they basically take just enough salt and just enough sugar and put it into foods to make it addictive. Like any more and it would be gross to you and you'd never touch that food again, but they back it down just a little bit and it becomes addictive. And there's a lot of people that say like, there's this conspiracy to keep us fat and dumb and eating copious amounts of junk food that's going to put us into an early grave. And when you look at the fact that the resolution for the vast majority of Americans every single year after year, is to eat better and maybe exercise more, you start to think there might be something to this.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I don't know if it's specifically, I don't know if scientists are specifically sitting there going, we got to make them fatter. But I guarantee you scientists are sitting there going, we got to make this food so irresistible that they can't put it down. Because I do pick it up, and it is so irresistible that I can't put it down. So, yeah, I do think that they're doing that. Are they really wanting us fatter? Who knows? Probably.
Lots of Americans want to spend less money, and I respect that. I really do. And frugality and sensible spending, and not like rampant over the top consumerism. This is good, but I don't know. If I were from the outside looking in, look at America and go, "You want to spend less money? How about make more?" Like, why deprive yourself? Why not make more and be comfortable? It's an interesting one because no one, nowhere on this top 10 list are people talking about making more money. They want to spend less. And that to me, look, I'm not advocating, like I said, rampant consumerism, but that to me is a bit of a limited thing.
Now, more AD on the radio.
Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you my musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD, and can't nobody rock a body better than me. Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you a musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD, and can't nobody rock a body better than me.
So, Travis, did you spend a lot of time sort of on the sofa watching holiday movies while eating copious amounts of junk food? Is that how you spent your holiday season?
I actually spent it at work, but I did try and work in as many like cheesy Christmas movies as I could, like in the time off. But
Die Hard, Home Alone.
No, I spent it working.
Oh, man, I haven't watched television the way I watched over the last couple of weeks in probably about a year, just because I don't have time. There's so much that I want to watch, and I sort of sometimes watch TV in the background while I'm doing other things. Like I can watch baseball games all baseball season while I'm doing other stuff. But like the idea of sitting down watching shows or watching movies, that just isn't usually a thing in my life. And you know what I've discovered? You know what I discovered over the last couple of days? I discovered that, or the last couple of weeks rather, I discovered that I don't like being the guy with the remote. Like you're hanging out with family and you've got the remote and everybody's bitching at you to change things, turn it up. Why are we watching this commercial? I've decided I am very anti-television remote. And well, have a listen to Jim Gaffigan weighing in on this exact subject.
I do like being married to a strong, decisive woman. But you know what? I'm in charge of the remote control. That's where I draw the line. All right? I'm in charge of the remote because I'm the man. All right? I mean, she picks all the shows we watch, but I get to hold the remote. Because that's the kind of puppet dictator that I am. Being in charge of the remote control is a no-win situation anyway. The person you're watching with is never satisfied. They're like, turn it up, I can't hear it. And then you turn it up and the commercial comes on. Turn it down, what's wrong with your hearing? I'm always in trouble when we watch television. Stop crinkling that bag. Once I got in trouble for sneezing. Why would you do that? I think it's involuntary. Well, now I didn't hear what that guy said. All right, I'll rewind it. Oh, now it's starting the whole episode over. Here, you should be in charge of the remote. I'm going to go back to hiding in the bathroom. Because I'm a man!
I absolutely 100% agree. I've got absolutely no interest in being the person with the remote. It just makes you... It's why I would never get into politics. You make one little decision and the entire world jumps down your throat and says you're completely out of touch and don't know what the hell you're doing. The remote could be a very, very bad thing. And I learned that the hard way with my family over the holidays. Hey, Travis, did you hear the big news? And well, I don't know if this happened in 2018 or if this happened toward the end of 2017. Did you hear about the big arrest?
No. Well, hang on. I say no. I want to say I might have heard about it, though. What is the big arrest?
The big arrest is they got the Nigerian Prince.
Oh my God. Okay, I heard the headline. I didn't hear the details.
All right. Well, we'll get into the details.
It sounded really funny.
We'll get into the details a little later on. But like before we do, I have a question for you. Have you ever known anyone that's been taken in by the Nigerian Prince scam?
Yeah, like it was a friend's mom, and like she swore to the dead. Yeah, I know. And it was like in the beginning of the internet. Like it was the beginning of when that scam started.
Right.
And she swore that it was legit. Like I'm trying to remember which friend it was because I'm trying to. Oh man, it was so long ago. I remember one of my friend's mom because it's one of those if it sounds too good to be true deals. And when you're like skeptical of everything, which I don't want to say I am, but I am. If you were to tell me, oh, this is going to happen, or this is going to happen, and it seems kind of far fetched.